first, is I'm astounded at how quickly you learned these pieces and how well you learned them in a short period of time, you know, having been wounded in the battlefield. The second thing is that the edition that I have on here is different from yours a little bit. So I wasn't following it exactly, so I'll probably come and peer over your shoulder. But when I looked at the ones you were doing, I looked at the melody one, and I thought, oh, we're going to have a lot to talk about with this, because, you know, it really sounds like two hands. I don't have much to say. It was so beautifully done. You know, it's, when I close my eyes, it sounds like two hands. You know, the sound that you get in the melody versus the accompaniment. I mean, your control was really impressive. And, you know, it would be impressive if you'd been working on these for the last few months. In the amount of time that you've had, I'm just really astounded. So, my mask is off so you can see my jaw drop. Congratulations. It's really, really good. Okay, so a couple of things. So the order that is in mine is different, so I have to hunt around. So the Danca is back here. Okay, hang on. Okay. So this one has also kind of the two-hand sort of feeling in it. So you have yada da 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 boom boom da 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 boom boom. So in here, I think the first issue, because these are pieces that I don't know, so is for you to think about. Well, let me put it this way. If you were two-handed, which you're not right now, what I would ask students to do is to practice these with two hands. The purpose is to figure out how do you want it to sound. Because the ideal is to sound like you're playing with two hands. Okay? So a lot of the left-hand alone repertoire that predates this, I assume, that it's probably earlier, came right in the second decade of the 20th century, right after the First World War. So it would be the third decade. So there was a very famous pianist whose name slipped my mind, and then another as well, for whom composers wrote pieces. So Prokofiev has a left-hand concerto. The Ravel left-hand concerto is very famous. There's a lot of left-hand. Saint-Saëns has a whole set of left-hand etudes. So this repertoire in the early part of the 20th century appeared to give this really famous pianist whose right hand was blown off in the war, you know, repertoire to play, and had a concert career as a pianist for the left hand. So we also have left hand exercises, of course, because for most of us, we're right-handed and our left hands are like not nearly as dexterous as the right hand. So what I would say with all of the left hand stuff, which I think you especially successfully did, you did well in all three, but especially in the melody, was just really beautiful, is to think about yada da da dee da dee da dee da da da, right hand, left hand, yada da, so that you differentiate between the two a little bit more. Because in this one, it sounded like one hand, yada da 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 ba 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 ba, instead of yada da 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 da. So if you can try the first passage, yada da 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 da, and stop when you do F sharp A, and close that. Okay, so that finishes. And then the D is as if you're doing it with a different hand. Okay, can you try that? Right, so now, do you have articulation marks in your edition?
Yes.
You do, so it's two-note slurs?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, this one doesn't have articulation marks. So I'm suspecting this edition is a fairly new one, and used, the source was the National Library of Brazil. So I'm guessing that the edition you have, that might be an editorial marking, which is fine. Just in the interest of just trying it, try playing the whole thing legato. Just see what happens with that. Right, don't play the D's, okay? Just stop on the F sharp A, okay? Okay, and then yada-da-dee, and then yada-da-da-da. There's your phrase, okay? The D's are filler, Okay, they're providing a bass, but they're a different instrument. So if you think about this, maybe being a violin, ya da 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 dee da dee da dee da da dee da, boom boom, ya da 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 dee da, boom boom. Do you see what I mean? So that sometimes, if in your imagination you orchestrate it, so whatever instrument you happen to want to think of, it doesn't really matter, but two separate instruments, so that you can make, because it helps you imagine a different sound, and if you can imagine it, we can hear it. Okay? I kind of like it with more legato, frankly. You know, again, it's, you know, but I think I like it, kind of, because the slurs, you did them really well, but it sounds kind of like the hiccups, you know. I think a little bit. Just give it a shot and see. So now, in your imagination, pick an instrument that's doing ya da 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 dee da dee da dee da 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 da, okay, and or da da ending, and then a different instrument for the D octaves. Okay, give it a shot now. Great. Those were much more differentiated. Now let's try something else, so that your octaves, your quote-unquote left-hand part, was louder than your melodic part. See if you can swap that, okay? You know, it's worth kind of playing around with. Of the three of them, I think in some ways this one is the most difficult, because it's jumping between two parts a lot. So, so I think that if you kind of imagine different instruments playing it, and then play around with how you can make the two voices separated, so that it has that differentiation. Again, if you had a working right hand, I would have you practice it with two hands, because once you get a sense in your ears of, oh, that's how I want it to sound, you know, your hands are well trained. You have technique, you know, so if all you have to do is send the message to your hands, this is how it sounds, and they're like, oh, sure, yeah, I can do that. You know, but if you're not clear how you want it to sound, and you're playing with your eyes, you know, then we're playing dots on the page, and your hands like going, it says F sharp, you know, but you're not, it doesn't translate necessarily into the sound that you want. And, you know, these pieces are so new for you, you know, you're just in the beginning of a process. I mean, how long have you been working on these? 3 weeks? Yeah, I mean, you know, you're doing amazingly well. It's really, really good. So that would be the thing that I would say, is to try to think about what the phrase is, because it's very busy, but you can hear from the harmony, ya-da-da-da-dum, when it goes up to that G, boom, and then a new phrase, ya-da-da-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da-da-da, boom, boom, ya-da-da-da, boom, boom, ya-da-da-da, boom, boom, and then it ends on the D, so there's your second phrase. Once you get the phrases sort of worked out, then you can start thinking about, you know, just to put it really simply, is the first phrase a question or an answer? Do you have question answer? Do you have answer question? You know, how do the phrases relate to one another, which will then help you create more of a narrative. Does that make sense? Okay, let me just turn, there. Okay, so can you try, when it goes into two flats? Okay, can you start there? It's pretty close to a repeat, isn't it? Isn't it exactly the same? Okay, so when someone, your piano teacher, parent, whatever, tells you to do something and then tells you a second time, probably the way they say it the second time isn't going to be exactly the same as the first time, right? You know, could you please clean the kitchen? Could you please clean, you know, okay. So the same thing is true when you have a repetition in piano. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but a repetition always is some kind of an intensification. That doesn't mean that it has to get louder, okay? But that the repetition has to mean something. What you don't want to do is hit the repeat button and do it exactly the same, okay? You can improvise how you want to do it, okay? So play the first phrase, which you did, it was very nice, and then play the second phrase, and make that phrase respond to the first phrase, okay? However you want. All right? Give that a try. There you go. Good. Try reversing it now. Try starting louder and then echo. See how that works. Very different kind of feeling. And again, you know, how you choose to do it is really up to you. Another option that you have is to include some dynamics within each phrase. So for right now, you're doing one loud, one soft, you know, and then the first time was one soft, one loud. So try to think about how you're going to shape the phrase. Also, remember, it's gone into minor now. So you started in G major, now you're in G minor. And you've really done a good job of changing the character as well as the sonority, but it's still a danza, okay? So you want to make sure that you keep that sort of lively dance sort of rhythm. I have, in the interest of full disclosure, I don't know a whole lot about Brazilian dance tradition, but I do know that in other countries that have a connection to Latinx cultures, you know, originally from Spain, Portugal, that area, that the dances from those countries in Europe tend to be narrative and tend to sort of communicate some kind of a story. Okay, not, you know, really, really specific like a play, but, you know, that there are relationships, you know, between the two dancers and so forth and so on, but they're still dancing. Okay, so don't lose that really great flair that you have in the first part when it goes to minor. Okay, all right, so try this minor section one more time. Good. I thought that was a lot better. How did that feel? Yeah, I thought that was really good, and it really felt to me more like it had a narrative. Now, at this point, when you go back into major, you know, I would really, you know, even if you use the really simple idea of major, happy, minor, sad, you know, so you finished sad, and now it's like everything's okay. So I think you can sort of show off that major thing again. Okay. Alrighty, good. Do you have any questions with this? Okay. The Melodia, I mostly, hang on. It's back here, I think. Yeah. Mostly what I want to do is tell you what you did well, because there's really nothing I would want to tinker with. I think that, you know, your melody, you had a really beautiful singing sound. There, your balance between the I'm going to call them between the hands, but between the voices was consistently beautifully done. The only one thing I would say when you finish a phrase is to be sure that you close the phrase politely, that there's not a bump at the end. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Another thing that, to be perfectly honest, when I looked at the piece, I thought was probably going to be a problem, and not once did you play the melody note a staccato and hold it with pedal. Every single melody note you played, and you had to move fairly quickly to get down, always had a tenuto over it. So there was never and a pedal is not going to hide a staccato, and you didn't play one. Every single note was length so that it sounded very, very legato, even though, of course, physically that's not possible. So it was just really beautifully, beautifully done. If I had a gold medal, I'd give you one. So the last piece, the Brincando. Do you know what a Brincando is? I don't either. So it seems to me that it's some kind of dance-like quality. So this one, in my part, is just notated on a single staff. Is that the same for you?
There's two staffs, but it only stays on.
Oh, okay, but the one is empty. Okay, okay. Yeah, I liked this one a lot too. Can you just try a little bit again? Okay. Okay, right, I remember. So this has these running scales, which probably would be a whole lot more comfortable in your right hand than in your left hand if you weren't in a cast. So one of the things that will help you with the scales, because they're a little tight, is to release your elbow a little bit. Yum ba da 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 da. Let your elbow lead your fingers down. Because what's happening is that your elbow, it's not really tight, but it's definitely fixed. It's kind of stuck there. And your fingers are on their own. Yum da 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 da, because your arm's not helping you out. Yum da 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 da. Let your arm, carry your hand down the keyboard and just grab the notes as you go by. Yum da 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 da. Try that. Yeah. Yum ba da 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 dum. Right. It's a little bit like if you were playing backwards on a violin or on a cello, bowing with your left hand. It's a little like a bow. Yum ba da 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 dum. Yeah. Faster. Okay. Yum da 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 dum. There you go. Try it again. Exactly. So imagine that you have a little sparkler in your fingertips. Your fingers are going da-da-da-da-da-da, and your arm is doing the transport. Almost, try it again. A little bit of a squeeze in your fingers. Yum, da-da-da-da-dum. Try it again. Yeah, that's it. So let's go to that long scale. That's I don't know where on your score it is, but you know where it goes. That long ascending scale. Okay. So on the piano, well, with your left hand, when you go this way, it would be as if you're doing a down bow. Okay, when it's with your right hand, it's the opposite. A down bow is playing up on the piano, but it's as if you're doing a down bow. This time you're going to be going up. Yeah, but again, let your arm deliver your fingers to the right place. All your fingers have to do is grab the notes. Try it again. Good. Yeah, that's it. So what happens when you let your arm do that? To my younger students, sometimes we'll talk about these are the passengers, this is the taxi cab, and the taxi cab delivers the passengers to the right address. The passengers don't get out of the taxi cab and haul the taxi cab down the street. Okay? So if you think about letting your arm do the transport and your fingers simply play as you arrive on the notes, you get the added benefit that the phrase gets automatically shaped. It just happens. You know, so when you play a phrase and it's not really shaped, you can almost take it to the bank that your arm is going to be a little stiff or fixed. So as soon as you free that up, it's like opening a faucet. It'll just come out. It's like magic. Try the scale once more, okay? Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Good, so that was mainly in this particular piece, it was the scales kind of that I wanted to talk to you about with the left hand. Congratulations, I'm just incredibly impressed with what you've accomplished in a short time. It's a really beautiful performance.